My name is Sandy Jey. So I go by Sandy because I live in the US. I work in the US. So it's easier for people to pronounce. I'm originally from Chennai, South India. Did my schooling there, did my bachelor's in Anna University, engineer, obviously, like majority. I came to the US, did my master's in mechanical engineering. I went vegetarian in India. I grew up as a meat eater, but then became vegetarian in India. But I went vegan in the US. So after I went vegan in the US, which has been like around 7 years now, still didn't feel enough. So I went into activism and I identify myself. Although I'm an engineer by profession, I'm an animal rights activist by passion. So I live in Indiana, the state of Indiana in the US, and I'm involved in activism apart from my full-time job as an engineer. There's two incidents that first incident was what prompted me to go vegetarian. That was back in India. I was in Chennai. I was stuck in traffic behind a poultry truck. I could see like chickens with their like feathers falling off in such terrible shape, just helplessly rolling around, almost lifeless in the cages, in the battery cages in the poultry truck. And I was a hardcore meat eater, as most would say. That was like a moment of realization where I was actually facing my victims. And I felt like the only reason why those birds are there with their wings caught in between the cages and just bleeding is because I put them there. My money put them there. And I felt so terrible about myself. And I used to volunteer a little bit with Blue Cross, like take a bag of dog food, cat food, and just drive over in my scooty. I felt like the hypocrite of the century while I'm like loving some species. And then here I am paying for some other species just because I want to taste their flesh. It felt so bad. And I went vegetarian because I felt like dairy industry didn't seem to be too bad. I wasn't educated enough on that. So the first moment in Chennai was the poultry truck incident, which made me go vegetarian. And then I came to the US and for some reason, I didn't connect the dots with dairy and eggs. I even connected a dot with silk. In India, I stopped wearing even saris. I went for artificial silk, which obviously didn't abuse silkworms, but never made the connection with dairy and eggs because I believe I didn't think they were abusive because the animals didn't die necessarily. But here, when I came to the US, my second life moment that prompted me to go vegan was when the Jallikattu re-legalization happened. And there was this clash of two strongly opinionated groups that say, if you truly want to protect your culture, you have to support Jallikattu. And there's other group that's like, these animals are bullied. You don't need this to glorify your culture. Your culture can thrive because of the goodness to it. Jallikattu is basically an event, a traditional event that's been happening for years and years in South India, in many parts of South India. So the event basically involves terrorizing and agitating an animal who doesn't know where to go and how to escape that traumatic situation and is forced to run amidst a crowd or a mob of people who want to tame the animal, who was basically agitated in the first place. If you see a cow or a bull, they are very docile and peaceful animals in nature. They are prey animals. They fear predators, and to pounce on them, to tug at their tail, and it's a highly unregulated sport, as they call it. There's like so many inhumane ways to trigger them and to make them run among the crowds, like rubbing chili or tugging the tail. And there is no humane way to run that event. And there's no necessity as well. Some people used to justify, oh, that's to selectively breed bulls to get better quality milk. Well, milk isn't necessary in the first place. Cow's milk is for their baby. So that's a moot point regardless. So to justify violence with anything, it didn't make sense. And I've always growing up as a kid, I was always against Jallikattu. And the incident where they, I would say, re-legalized it or passed the ordinance which allowed Jallikattu as an exception to the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals Act, that happened. And I was in tears. I was a mess. And I spoke to my friend in Chennai, GP Aishwarya. She's a vegan as well. And I used to, we need like a venting system, right? I used to call her and I used to cry to her, why is this like this? Oh, I feel so bad for the animals. And she did not sugarcoat it. She said, well, Sandhya, are you consuming dairy and eggs? And I was like, yeah, but I just have organic milk, cage-free eggs. And then she was like, well, that's part of the problem. There's no right way to do the wrong thing. And part of the reason why they protect Jallikattu is to preserve the quality of milk, although we know that's there's not a lot of merit to it. And that was like a life moment when a vegan held me accountable, pointed out my hypocrisy, did not sugarcoat it. She gave it to me straight and said, if you don't like the cruelty, then you need to make sure you're not part of the problem, right? And then I forced myself to go to YouTube, just look up dairy cruelty, and saw how cruel this industry is. It's sustained torture and death. So in my mind, that broke my programming, years of programming that, oh, calves get their milk and then we get the rest of the excess milk. All of that programming, I broke out of it because of that one event. And I decided I no longer wanted to be a hypocrite. And I remember looking at my plate of curd rice and I felt like, damn, this is milk that a calf should have drank. A mother who made this for her baby. And here I am just hogging on it. Absolutely unnecessary luxury food. And that made me go vegan. Think it was around like 7 years back. But that was my turning point as well. I was heavily brainwashed by, organic is good, humane is good, local, free range is good. That was the major threat to the vegan movement, is just coddling people's guilt and saying, hey, there is a better way to do the wrong thing. And I was stuck in that. That's why now as an activist, it really shaped the way I do activism. I do abolitionist activism. I don't ask people to reduce, go baby steps. I say this is the injustice that's happening. You're either part of it or you're against it. So there's no middle ground. It's not like I would do this like 5 days a week and 2 days I can cheat on it. There's no plan B if you want to be against an injustice. So that's the way I became vegan. And after going vegan, and being Indian, it's very easy to veganize most of the recipes. So it didn't feel like a huge stretch. And at that point, I wasn't like craving meat, cheese, eggs, or anything at that point. It was just, I felt such a huge relief that my plate didn't look gory and I could actually feel good about what I was eating. So I felt that was veganism. Apart from being good for the animals, I could feel better as a person, that I was one less person hurting the animals. So that's the story of how I went vegan. So after I went vegan, like I said, I felt good about what I was putting into my body. And of course, not just stopping with the diet, but not supporting circuses that have animals, rodeos, zoos, aquariums, and animal tested products. So it's like such a good learning that we actually scrutinize everything that's been built as part of our lifestyle. Didn't feel enough because it's like every single day, millions of animals are slaughtered for meat, dairy, egg industry, the food industry, and abused. Right now, as we speak, there's animals trapped inside dairy farms, fur farms, and it just didn't feel that I was doing enough. Like, okay, I'm one less person hurting animals, but the awareness shouldn't just stop with me, and I need to light the candle, just like how my vegan friend Aishwarya, she helped me accountable. I felt like so many people who were completely unaware of what we are how our actions are hurting animals. So I felt that awareness shouldn't stop with us, and it has to keep spreading. And for me, obviously, the common guilt for across the board for vegans is, I wish I went vegan sooner, right? So for me, I think I was around 27 when I went vegan, and I was like, at least the next 27 years, I have to be in. At 27 years, I have abused animals, killed them, paid for their rape, murder, and now, from now on, at least 27 years, I'm going to, fight for their rights, activism, and of course, 27 and beyond, because until the day I die, I really want to be a voice that can't be ignored and something that the animals, and hopefully we will get to animal liberation sooner than that. But like I said, I didn't feel that it was enough just being vegan. So I started to get active in ways that were comfortable for me initially. I looked for local animal rights groups in my area, joined local vegan groups and seeing what's happening. I saw a puppy mill protest that was scheduled like 40 minutes from my house. And I was like, you know what? I think I need to be there. Every person holding a sign there is adding more awareness to the cause. So that was my first activism, holding a sign outside of a store that was selling dogs and cats. And it just grew from there. I have 7 years being vegan, and I would say 5 years being a vegan activist. And apart from the puppy mill protest, I've protested circuses, rodeos, and we do a regular monthly event called Cube of Truth. I'm a chapter organizer for Anonymous for the Voiceless. So I co-organize for the Evansville, Indiana chapter, which is where I live, and I also am the lead organizer for 2 other chapters in the same state. So I love that form of activism, Cube of Truth, and we do that like monthly basis, at least one per month, in a crowded place. The basic crux of the activism is we hold a screen showing footage from the documentary Dominion. It includes meat, dairy, eggs, animal testing, fur, etc., all the facets of animal cruelty. And we let people watch it, and if people choose to stop, and if it bothers them enough, and we ask them if they would like to learn more about what they're seeing. And then if they say yes, if they choose to be there, then we start the conversation with them. So we do that. And it's, I love that form of activism because we are actually showing the victims. There's no argument, there's no debating there, but it's just, here are the victims that these industries are choosing to hide from you, but you need to see them. And then we ask them questions like Socratic questioning, like, are you against animal cruelty? And everybody would say, of course I am against animal cruelty. And then, do you think it's possible to be against animal cruelty while you consume meat, dairy, eggs, etc.? And then they start questioning themselves. And those questions eventually lead them to identifying their own hypocrisy or seeing, am I truly against animal cruelty, or am I missing something? And that really makes people make the connection and go vegan. So that's a prime form of activism that we do, Cube of Truth. Honestly, if I don't do activism, I feel like I'm wronging the animals to a part. It's like us as vegans, we see so much cruelty around us. And apart from needing a support system, we get frustration, the pent-up anger, aggression, the feeling of helplessness. All of those activism gave me a healthy channel to constructively put all those emotions into work. So activism in a way was, or continues to be, therapeutic to me, because obviously that's benefiting the animals directly, but also I feel like that's my purpose in life, to help those who are absolutely not able to help themselves, and their voices are absolutely ignored in our society. In the city that I live right now, every year they have a circus where they bring in elephants, 7 elderly female Asian elephants. It happened last month as well. And it's unbelievable. There are so many developing countries that have already banned the use of wild animals in circuses. And here I am in the United States, where tigers, bears, elephants, they are just paraded from state to state in trailers. Some states have a ban, but not all of them. So in our city, since 2021 September, I felt like, okay, we are protesting the circus every year, but it's not enough. And we started approaching the city council members and saying, hey, you need to enact a ban. So we have spoken to multiple people who have finally expressed interest in passing a ban. So that's legislative work as well. So I feel there's so many forms of activism, and we have to engage in anything that we are comfortable with and not lose an opportunity to speak for the animals. So legislative action could be like emailing your mayor or your council members, talking to people, the elected officials, and even writing letters to the editor, which reaches a lot of people. There's people like what the form of activism that I do with Cube of Truth is kind of confronting people with images of their victims. So there's a lot of forms of activism, and it's possible to do it at the fingertips right now. So I think for vegans, there's really no excuse to not engage in any form of activism comfortable to them. I think it's just like how veganism is a moral baseline. I think speaking up about animal cruelty is also a moral baseline. And the form of activism is up to them for this. They can play to their strengths, but something has to be done is the baseline. I organized a circus protest here, and I came in here with signs, and it was a rainy day, so it was not a lot of people there, but I was still wanting to hold the sign and educate. Even if one family, even if one child reads my sign and feels like, okay, those animals are not happy inside, that's a victory for me. So I was like still fervent, and I was walking towards a protest location, and I saw a guy standing there in the rain as well, wanting to protest. So that's my current boyfriend of 4 years, Brian. So that's, I think, and he's also, incidentally, he's also an organizer for Anonymous for the Voiceless. So that's like my greatest find in activism, is that I found my current partner through activism as well. And we started talking, and what made us go vegan. And he was an overnight vegan. He watched a documentary, Earthlings, and just overnight he went vegan. So we share a lot of passions, and it really is so empowering to be with a vegan partner, because you can cry, you can vent. There's so many things that we can actually rely on each other on. So I like doing activism with him, and when things get so hopeless, we can even cry to each other. So that's my biggest find in activism. And another cherished memory that I have with some activism is that my dad went vegan after I went vegan. He lives in Chennai too. And we do Cubes of Truth together. And he has also come to circus protests with me. So doing activism with my partner and my dad side by side, it makes me so feel very blessed to do activism with people that I share my common values with. So that's something very warm. Of course, there's also the downside. There's activism where people have obviously flipping the bird. They would show us that's common, and I'm so numb to it by now, it doesn't even bother me. But having beer cans thrown at us, having drinks thrown at us, it's like, how childish can you be that people speaking up for animal rights triggers you so much? So at this point, it used to make me feel like, how could people be so cruel? But now I'm like, yeah, if they can abuse animals, I'm not going to expect some civilized behavior to humans here either. So there's always, every activism is kind of an adventure in itself. So that's kind of some painful memories. I'm not going to let my emotions come into a place, because I'm not the victim here. The victims are the animals. I'm just the messenger. So I think every activism made my skin thicker and thicker, to how much of a stronger advocate I need to be for the animals, and how I cannot let my emotions get the best of me. Veganism is the only movement that the animals have for themselves. This movement is not about human health. It's not about the environment. It's not about anything that concerns humans and our surroundings. It's really about the animals, their suffering, and how they deserve liberation just as much as we do. So my request is, obviously, if you're not vegan yet, face your victims. I was in denial for so long. Just don't make the mistake that most of us did. Every vegan would say, I wish I went vegan sooner. Just be curious enough to say, okay, let me look into what my local, humane, all that grass-fed, cage-free, all that crap. Let me really see if that's humane enough. And if it's humane enough, would I send my dog or cat to a slaughterhouse? Absolutely not. So if it's not humane for you or your, your companion animal, then it's not humane. So that's how you gauge what humane is. Don't let anybody define what humane is. I bought into that brainwashing. So I really want to tell people, dairy, organic, cage-free, grass-fed, certified humane, RSPCA certified, doesn't mean anything to the animals. Just put yourself in the animal's perspective, face your victims, just go to YouTube and type in that industry's cruelty and see for yourself. I think awareness is key. Every single day that we choose to be in our comfort zone, into our safe space, the animals are getting butchered and murdered by the millions, and that's not something we can afford. So my first request is educate yourself, if you're not vegan yet, about what animals go through for your shampoo, your chicken nuggets, for every food or product that you have consumed. So awareness is key. Veganism is just about the animals. So once you go vegan, do not miss an opportunity to speak for the animals. Don't be forced into being, don't be scared of labeling by non-vegans. Oh, pushy vegan. Oh, there's the vegan. How do you find out if somebody's a vegan? They'll tell you. So don't be overshadowed by all of those branding that non-vegans do. Be the vegan that the animals want you to be, not the vegan that non-vegans want you to be, the quiet, timid ones. No, that's what makes them feel good about themselves. But remember, every time you're silent, the animals lose their strongest advocate.